righty. So you're good, Joe? We are good. Okay. I think we will get started. We've got a few people coming in, it looks like maybe, but we will get it going. And hello, everybody. My name is Joel Detweiler, and I am a financial planner in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And as you can see on the slide, I'm also the founder of a firm called the Quantum Group Special Needs Planning. I'll explain a little bit more about myself, but today we're going to talk about ABLE accounts and understanding ABLE accounts. Sometimes when you ask, I've had experiences with clients. I work with numerous different types of clients, whether it's parents who are guardians of a person or a child with a disability, or it's the person themselves with a disability, or with a caseworker, or whoever that may be. We run into a number of different situations where some people have ABLE accounts and utilize them. Some people have no idea what they are. And I think so I guess I would say from my experience, they're relatively underutilized. I want to be able to, with me being a financial planner, I'm somewhat restricted. You can see my compliance VOIA cares in the bottom right corner. They're the parent company that makes sure that any presentation I give is correct and been reviewed. But I also have added a few slides of my own with pictures to maybe explain things. Words are great, but pictures to me are better. And I make the joke that when I read books to my daughters, those are my favorite books because they had not many words and lots of big pictures. So it worked out better. So, but I want to be able to explain some things today. As we go through, I'm going to kind of, I guess, maybe push through the first portion that explains what ABLE accounts are and some of their features. And as you guys have questions, please put your questions in the chat and put them in there as we go. And then I'm going to pause probably. I've got some case studies that I'd like to maybe go through as examples. And before I do that, I'll pause and see what we have in the chat and see if we can go with that. And then as we get towards the end of the hour, hopefully we've got some time to answer questions as well. So other part of it, if we don't get to an answer today for any of you, my email address is here at the bottom, jdetweiler@quantumplanners.com. Please don't be afraid to email me. The way that I function with my business, yes, I'm a financial planner. No, I don't charge fees for conversations or anything like that. I mean, I want to help. And I want to be able to, if it's the difference between you setting up an ABLE account or not, based on one question you have, please reach out. Let me help you. This is a structure and a function that you should be able to do absolutely on your own, whether you are a parent or whether you are, basically on your own and self-determined and have your own situation. Everyone who is eligible can and should have this type of account, and how you use it really depends upon your situation. So I want to help enable, your ability to save and spend money on yourself and reach goals. And to me, there's no price on that. I mean, it's something that I wanted to build a relationship to make sure that you have what you need. So, so without further ado, we'll get going here and start talking about, one thing I like to do is kind of share my story. I am from the Madison, Wisconsin area. I grew up in Oregon, Wisconsin, just south of Madison. I went to college at Wisconsin-Platteville and UW-Madison. You can see at Madison is where I met my wife. She's much better looking than me and smarter. She's a physical therapist. And my two daughters, Ava is the tall one standing up. And then Lily is the one who's doing the piggyback ride, and Ava's a freshman and Lily's a sixth grader. So when I got out of college at Madison, I went into coaching college football. I was actually a college football coach for about 15 years. And that brought us to La Crosse, Wisconsin, brought our family there. And then about 5 years ago, we decided that football was starting to wear on us. And so we decided to get out, and I used some of my background to establish a financial planning practice. And now I've founded the Quantum Group, which is a financial planning firm, as well as a special needs planning firm. And then the parent company that I work for. So I have a local company called Quantum. And then the parent company that I work for is called VOIA. And VOIA has its own division for special needs planning called VOIA Cares. So One of the things that we're real proud of with our group and with our family, is our volunteering and the time that we spend in the community. And, I think we've put in maybe in the last five or 6 years, I learned that as a football coach and helping others and reaching out. And my abilities help me open a lot of doors, right? And I want to be able to help others open doors as well too. And so we've put in probably 300 to 400 hours of community service, and we've become connected with, as you can see on the right, a number of great groups that, the Disability Action Network, I'm a board member for that here in La Crosse. The NASA Squirrel Association is an outdoors activity group of a number of old coaches and old hunters and stuff, and they do a number of outside things with people with disabilities and the elderly. La Crosse Autism Foundation. My daughters have spent a lot of time down in Waukesha, Wisconsin with my grandmother, or with my mother-in-law at Zacharias Acres. I probably put about a third of the logos on here of all the different places that I've met. GT Independence, you look at Inclusa, all the different great people that you might work with. I feel a lot of, I guess have a lot of gratitude for the people that I work with and able to really provide some things. So a little bit about me. Hopefully that lets you be a little bit more comfortable. I travel, I got questions yesterday. I travel all over the state and enjoy talking to people. Obviously right now with COVID, it's a lot of Zoom, but I've got people I work with in Menominee Falls. I've got people that I work with in Rice Lake, Green Bay, all the different places, so I think that distance is not an issue. If it becomes, I enjoy working with everybody that needs help. I don't want to turn anybody away. So I want to be able to provide answers and help people get where they want to get to. So, so what are we going to do today? When we look at kind of our agenda, I want to be able to answer, what is an ABLE account? Are you eligible for an ABLE account? Okay. And what are the requirements for that? Will an ABLE account impact government benefits? That's usually one of the big questions that you have, is if you are receiving benefits of some sort, how does an account that saves money not affect government benefits? And that's something that we'll cover. What can you do? What can you use an ABLE account for? So it doesn't affect government benefits, but like, what's the point of getting one? I think that's, what are the benefits of it? There are some unique features of ABLE accounts that we'll discuss. And then we'll also talk about, I think one of the big things is, how do you open one, right? And it's really pretty easy. That it's something that can be done. If you decided today you wanted an open ABLE account, you could have it done by, it's 10:55 right now. You probably could have one done by 11:30 and be ready to go. So it's a very easy process. And then, when we get to the end, we'll pause for some questions there. And then when we get to the end, we will talk about some case studies that are relatively generic in nature. But I think it's important to go through and just kind of see how things go. And really, if you're eligible to open an ABLE account, one of the most important things that you need to have someone work with you with is, how does this fit into my plan? How am I going to use this in the best way possible for me, my family, what I have going, my benefits, the different things like that. So that's what we have. So one of the things I don't have in my presentation is, I noticed yesterday, I think maybe I want to pause just for a second before we get going too, and thank, BPDD and Phil for the opportunity today. I was really, really impressed with yesterday's sessions. I went to basically every session. I talked to a number of people. I listened to Catherine Burrish talk yesterday. I was impressed with the way that she talked. I listened to Adam and Tyler talk about their paper shredding and can crushing. Right now, there are a lot of reasons to be negative with, you name it, pandemic, election, environment, whatever you want to pick. There's pretty much a hot button issue that you could pick from. And yesterday was an inspiring day for me. I'm thankful that I got a chance to listen to people, see how hard people work. Last night I came into the hangout room, and it was nothing but fun that was going on. We had cats and dogs and art projects and everything else. And, it's really cool to be welcomed into a group and have the opportunity to spend some time talking to people. Everybody is happy, and I realize that's not it. This event is what makes people happy. And everybody has their bad days, but to go through and do the things that not only you know, the participants do who are self-directed, but also parents and the work that's put in. I guess I just feel fortunate to be able to present to the group. So along those lines, I do not have an advocate or a self-advocate to come with me this year. I'm hoping if I get a chance to speak in future years, I'll have that. But one of the things that this is a video here that I've found that to me outlines what able accounts are, and you know, it's a really good illustration as to what we're going to talk about. So without too much further ado, I will play this and then we'll move on.
So they saved and bought a house. How is it having your own house?
I like that. I love it.
So anytime people got close to $2,000, we said you need to spend $800 to get down to $1,200, which is kind of the safe range that we manage, because one more deposit of their disability benefit is back up to $2,000.
I am getting my own condo and my own dog once I am out of the apartment that I am in now. I have saved $14,000 to buy my own condo. I put my money that I earn into my account. My family and friends also put money into my ABLE account.
So we do have a couple of so we had a couple of things with sound. I'll work on that. I think we're okay. I can also send a video. I don't know if we had some issues with that sound. I think we were okay, but if not, don't be afraid. I can surely send that out to you as a link. And we do have a few chat questions that I'm pretty sure we will cover these answers as we go, and we should be in pretty good shape. So, so as we go through, one of the things that, you know, at the very beginning, you know, what is an ABLE account? right? I think, and it's, you know, it's basically in 2014, President Obama signed into effect the Stephen Beck Jr. ABLE Act, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And in its sense, what it is that they are state established saving options. Okay, as you read through the bullet points, these are all the high-tech compliance stuff. Okay, they're accounts to provide independence for people with disabilities. They are available in all states. They are accounts that receive preferred tax treatment, and they allow individuals to save for disability-related expenses. And there can also be what's, you know, subject to a Medicaid payback. Okay, now that gets real fancy. That doesn't necessarily help anybody. So as I talked about, we've got some basic ideas of what they are. But if we look at it, you know, if you're an individual and you are on SSI and medical assistance, one of the limitations that you have in most cases is you are going to have a asset limit of, or a means testing that only allows you to have $2,000 in the bank. And that would be for both SSI and medical assistance. Now you may have some other benefits or a different type of benefit that doesn't have that restriction. But in most cases, if you have medical assistance or SSI, you're going to have this issue, right? Well, what does an ABLE account do? It's an extra account that is not counted for SSI or MA asset testing. It has really nothing to do with the bank money that you have. It's an additional place where you can put money per year into the ABLE account, and it is not counted by the state of Wisconsin. It's not counted federally. It's not counted, you know, so for MA or for SSI, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So basic building block, right? So next step.
So how can I help you? Yes.
We might have a muting issue, maybe. There we go. All right. So the next step, and a couple of our questions we've had already on the chat with this is, you know, what's the eligibility? Okay. And there's a couple of rules that apply. One rule being you have to, your disability has to have occurred prior to age 26. So there's an age requirement that runs with this account. Okay. I'll talk on the next screen about that a little bit more. Okay. The other requirement is the severity of your disability. Okay. If you qualify, whether you accept or don't accept and use it or not, but as long as you qualify for SSI or SSDI, you're automatically eligible to use a ABLE account if your disabilities happen prior to age 26. The other portion that you have is if you technically don't qualify right now for SSI or SSDI, if you have a physical or mental impairment that's marked severe or is expected to be essentially permanent and last for at least a year, and you could provide a disability certification by a physician, then you would also qualify for the severity of disability portion. So there's two main requirements. There's an age requirement and a severity disability requirement. Okay, so more simply put, there's the person. The disability diagnosis needs to happen prior to age 26, but what's important to understand is that's regardless of what age you are right now. So if you were 47 years old and had a disability diagnosis that happened prior to age 26, it doesn't matter what age you are right now. What matters is that the disability diagnosis, it may have been diagnosed 21 years ago, but you want to make sure that you have the option then, or you are age eligible in that regard. So that's one of the misnomers and things that people sometimes get caught up on, and is important to work through. So next would be, do or would you qualify for SSI, so the severity disability option, or SSDI right now, or is your disability permanent or expected to last more than a year? So there's part number one, hopefully explained a little bit better, and part number two, hopefully explained a little bit better. The last part that's very important to understand, and we talked about a doctor's notes and a doctor's diagnosis and documentation and that type of stuff. One of the things that's important is you do not need to provide proof or have that documentation with you when you set up an ABLE account. That is not necessary. So if the government or if the IRS or whoever comes to you and says, hey, we need proof, well, at that point in time, you'll need to be able to provide that documentation. But you don't have to upload proof of eligibility for SSI or anything of that nature, the, you know, whichever state you choose, they will take your word for it, take it on good faith that you qualify, and then you can move forward and you can proceed quickly. You know, hence the idea that, you know, we could have an account set up in about 30 minutes. Okay. So the biggest point of a lot of these things is to try and remove barriers or reasons as to why you would not want to try and set one up at, you know, really as soon as you can. I think that there's a huge benefit there. So that makes that slide hopefully a little bit simpler as well too. Next, we talk about some of the important rules that go with age eligibility as well as the disability eligibility. Okay, some of the important rules to understand. Only one ABLE account per person is allowed. Okay, so that's important to understand. You can't have multiple ABLE accounts in multiple states. Wherever you start is where you want to stay. You can't create two, for example. But if you did want to create one in one state and you decide you want to transfer to a different state, that is an allowable piece. You have to create the new one, transfer the funds, and close the old one. So only one is allowed, but you can move if you'd like to, if you find a state that you feel has better investment options or whatever that may be. Okay. The owner of the account is the beneficiary. And this is something that probably scares people a little bit because they say, well, I'm worried that if they're the account owner, that it's going to affect their benefits. Well, that's the whole point of an ABLE account, is it will not affect the benefits. It's not a countable asset. Okay. So the designated beneficiary, the person with a disability, is the owner of the account. And this is important later for estate planning pieces and some of the things we'll talk about when the person with the benefit, who the beneficiary is, may pass away. Okay. Now, we do have some cases where we have parents who are guardians, powers of attorney. They can be authorized representatives. I've got some clients that have this. They're guardians of their child, and they are the authorized representative, and they help manage the account. What gets put into the account, we'll talk about in a second here, but who can put it in the account is really, it's the individual with a disability, it's the parents, it's the corporation that they might work for part-time, it's friends, family. It's a place where pretty much anybody can give to this account. And that's what you know, is a unique thing that can come from a number of different places. So it functions like a trust. One of the best parts is it doesn't cost as much as a trust. So that's the basic rules when we talk about who and what. And then you also look at, you know, one of the big questions that I think was on the chat was, how much money can we put in? Okay, well, in a basic year, you're able to put in $15,000 into an account. Okay, and that number will probably rise over the next few years with inflation. But right now, the maximum amount that can be put into a ABLE account is $15,000 by any group of people. One of the caveats to it, and new parts that came 2 years ago in 2017 with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, is that if you work, so we have a client that has an ABLE account that's been set up, and he works at Quick Trip part-time. Okay, he works at Quick Trip. He does, and if you work, you're able to put an additional just over $12,000 into the account. But the caveat there is you can't be where you work, you cannot be participating in the retirement account program for that company. So our client who has a Quick Trip job, if he participates in the Quick Trip 401k, then that $12,140 is not available to him to put into his ABLE account. Now, should he decline and not put money into his Quick Trip 401k, then he's eligible to put an additional $12,000 into his ABLE account. So you can see how working, having opportunity, having friends and family that are willing to put money into the account, you can raise this number pretty quickly if it works out that way to have a large amount of money in this account if you'd like to. So that's what we have in terms of like the contribution limits that you can put in. Okay, so now a couple other rules that are important. Okay, and I think this is a lot of times when people look at these types of rules, these are rules that scare people away. And one of my jobs today is to make sure that it doesn't. I don't want this to be something where people look at these few rules and get scared off. Okay, number one is, can the assets in the account affect SSI? Okay, so if you're on SSI, normally, and you're only able to have $2,000 worth of countable assets to be eligible for SSI, okay? If the balance of your ABLE account, if you're contributing over a period of time and your ABLE account rises to the amount that it's in excess, if it exceeds $100,000, okay, your eligibility won't be terminated, but it'll just be paused until that amount comes back down. Anything over $100,000 in the ABLE account will be considered a countable asset. So essentially, $102,000 in your ABLE account will result in your not being able to have SSI for the period of time that the balance is above 102,000. So that's important to understand. But what I would say that's probably more important to understand is if you're an individual and you're on SSI and you're putting $15,000 a year into an ABLE account, which is a substantial amount of money. Okay, it's, you know, that's something that you'd have to work pretty hard. A lot of people would. I would have to put $15,000 a year into any one account. Okay, if you do the math and you put $15,000 into this account for 6 years, you're going to reach $90,000 if it doesn't grow at all. Okay, so, you know, and if you said more than likely people will put in the ballpark of, say, $5,000 into the account, it would take 20 years to get to $100,000. So what's important to understand is that, yes, there's a number there where SSI can be considered where the account can be countable, but it's only a portion of the account. It's only temporary. And I would say that if we get to a point, if I was working with one of you and we were getting to a point where we were getting to $90,000 in the account, we have a long time to get to that. It's going to, if you started your account today, it would take you 6.5 years to have $100,000 in that account. We're going to see that issue coming along. It's not going to be a surprise. So is it considered scary and maybe like, hey, you could lose your benefit here? Yeah, you could, but it would take a long time to get to that point and a lot of money saving to get to that point. And I would say that the purpose of the ABLE account really is to spend money to your benefit. You know, if we get to that high a number, that's great. But I would say that it's not the issue that some people might think it might be. So that's what's important, I think, is to dispel the myth of SSI disappearing. It's not going to happen fast. It's going to be something that we can discuss and we can plan for, and we're going to see happening, and it's going to be something we can take care of. So that's important to understand. Other eligibility, when we talk about federal benefits, so the first we talked about SSI, now we can talk about MA or Medicaid, okay? There is no number like there is for SSI. Medicaid still functions on the $2,000 limit when you're talking about means testing. The only thing that Medicaid has as a thing that is sometimes maybe perceived as a negative for an ABLE account is that Medicaid can claw back funds out of the ABLE account upon the passing of the beneficiary. So beneficiary has $10,000 in an ABLE account, beneficiary passes away, Medicaid can have claim to the assets that are in the ABLE account, but it's also with a caveat. So one thing to understand is the state of Wisconsin is considered a creditor, not a beneficiary. So when the beneficiary of the account passes away, the money doesn't disappear. The money is owned by the beneficiary's account and is owned by the beneficiary's estate. So in essence, the state will be the very last person to have access to funds. If we look at that from a picture standpoint, you know, you've got someone who has SSI, you know, you've got this ABLE account that enables you to obviously not have any issues with SSI and Medicaid. In terms of our picture, we go back to that. When we look at passing away of the owner, okay? So what are these limitations? We talk about Medicaid clawback. Maybe it's why it's not so scary, okay? So if you had $10,000 in a ABLE account and the beneficiary passes away, then Medicaid can ask for payback, but only for the expenses that were incurred when the ABLE account was in existence. So if the person is 40 years old, had an ABLE account for the last 5 years, Medicaid can only ask for expenses that were incurred in the last 5 years. That's number one. Number two, outstanding bills are paid first. So the executor or the personal representative of the estate of the person with a disability then is able to pay bills and, in most cases, pay final expenses as well too, funeral and burial expenses, which in many cases, you know, what's going to happen really, depending upon the amount of money that's in the account, is that the state is the last person to have any claim whatsoever. And in a lot of cases, or if you looked at it right now, many ABLE accounts are probably not really over $50,000. And that's probably a high number for what's in an ABLE account on average. I'd say on average, you're probably sitting between $10,000 and $15,000 in an ABLE account. Final expenses and outstanding bills will most likely be what takes care of most of the balance, helps the family. And by the time the state gets in line to be able to recover expenses, there won't be really a lot of expenses left and the family won't be put into a bad situation. So another way of saying, you know, this is a rule, this is a law, but it should not deter you from having an ABLE account. It should not be enough of a negative for you to say, this isn't really a very good idea. So that's what's important there. So as we said, kind of to review, you know, state of Wisconsin may have claim to some of the remaining funds, okay? Very similar if you'd have a grandmother or grandfather pass away who's on Medicaid that is in an elder care situation in a nursing home, okay? In this case, the state with an ABLE account will be the last in line. And really, if this does become a major concern, there are planning pieces with trusts that can handle the larger funding. You know, if your family has a larger amount of money, well, there's other tools that we can use in addition to an ABLE account that can be a pretty good situation. So, you know, in many cases, if you have a large trust fund for the benefit of the beneficiary, then the special needs trust can handle most of that money. If you put it into a special needs trust that's not a Medicaid payback trust, so it's a supplemental special needs trust, those funds will pass to the family. The ABLE account really can be used as an expense account versus a large funding account. So that's part of the planning piece that goes with things that is important when it comes to, you know, who's helping you put this together, right? What is your current situation specifically for you and how is it working for you? So last part that we talk about with most of these slides, I hope that you guys are still awake. ABLE accounts, like what can you spend it on, right? Why would you want this, right? What's the point, right? And really what's very nice about it is a very broad spectrum of things that you can spend of what a qualified disability expense is, okay? So the expense has to have been incurred at the time when the person was eligible for the ABLE account or the ABLE account's in existence. So backdating is probably not a real good practice, okay? The expense relates to the disability or helps expense or basically, you know, helps to maintain or improve the health or the quality of life of the person, okay? And when you go to the National ABLE RNC website, they talk a lot in their videos there, and the different phone calls that I've made, it is an extremely broad perspective. And I think they want people to be able to spend money, individuals on themselves. They want families to be able to use ABLE accounts for the benefit of children. And so they keep it a very broad spectrum. And I think that, you know, basically you would have to probably be trying to cheat the system for it to be a bad situation when it comes down to it. When you look at, you know, the list of things, here's a very general list of things that, you know, the expenses in the ABLE account can be spent on. Some of the most successful setups really are housing, which is very unique, and also basic living expenses. I've seen that's where people spend most of their, when they've had the most success with this, or you could look at, you know, everything on this board is something that could be spent and utilized as a qualified expense. Some of these things you may receive from a different source. You don't necessarily need to. I think that's what's important as well too, is what things do you get, you know, what different sources of funds do you get from other places? And then what can you use the ABLE account for instead? You know, when you look forward here, we have a couple things. I'll come back to the slide, but we talk about qualified education expenses. We talk about employment expenses. We talk about healthcare expenses. And I'll go back here without going too fast, but many of these things, if they're going to be provided by medical assistance or provided by an employer, there's no point in spending your ABLE account money on that if someone else can do it for you. Okay, and also and provide those funds for you, or there's a scholarship or a grant or whatever it happens to be. Okay, really what you want to be able to look at is, where can I spend this ABLE account money where it's, you know, not able to be spent elsewhere. So housing is a very big one. Basic living expenses is a very big one, and they both have broad reaches, right? So when we look at examples of qualified housing expenses, okay, and I think one of the biggest differences, if you have, for example, and some of you may have this situation where you have a special needs trust, and it'd be a supplemental special needs trust. One of the pieces in the trust that's, when they're written, is that funding cannot be spent on housing from that special needs trust. Okay. Now, the difference is with an ABLE account, which functions similar to a trust, this special needs trust is a no, where the ABLE account is a yes. And that's what's important to understand. So it can be like in the commercial that we saw, or the video that we saw, the couple was able to save funds to purchase a house. That's almost nearly impossible if, you know, when it comes to the other programs that you may have in order to be able to save the amount of money for a down payment, because you're unable to spend money on rent or housing or things like that. So that's one huge difference that comes about. We talk about qualified housing expenses. That's a very unique thing. So we talked about, and I went through this a little bit before, and you guys have this material that you can download as well too. You know, we could list tons of things that that are eligible for use with your ABLE account. And really it depends upon how you want to use it. How do you set it up so that you can use it in a way that's most beneficial to you? And then also realizing what's available to me without the ABLE account, and then what can I use the ABLE account for in addition to that? So these things are all there. Some of these things may be provided for you based on your benefits, some may not. So those are all, like I said, I've got 4 different slides of the different things that you can have, or that, you know, as examples that you could spend ABLE account funds on. Okay, so another feature that we talk about. So I think one of the things that people get quite nerved up about and quite concerned about is, you know, well, what if they come check me? What if they audit me? Okay, and one of the ways to track this and do a good job understanding and have a good record of where your things are is to have an electronic record, you know, and if you sign up for an ABLE account, can you sign up for that account at a place, or can you sign up at a state that provides a debit card program, so that anything that you spend has an electronic record? So think of it as your own bank. You have a debit card, you swipe, the bank has an electronic record. You're going to be able to see, you know, if you have an ABLE account and you have a debit account and you buy something on Amazon for the beneficiary, or the beneficiary, you buy it for yourself, you're going to be able to track that, see that. There's going to be an electronic record that when the IRS or whoever else, when the state comes to you and says we want to see a record of your expenditures, we're able to utilize that. Okay, so many of the ABLE accounts in the different states offer the opportunity to use their debit card program. Okay, now what's scary about a debit card program? Well, what if you lose a debit card? What if it gets stolen? Okay, so we look at that and say, here's a safety portion. Okay, and many and probably all of these accounts that offer debit accounts also have a feature where you may have $10,000 in your ABLE account, but then you create a debit account that's also a portion, you know, a portion of that ABLE account is a approved debit amount, say $300, that we put $300 a month into the approved account, and the individual can then use that $300 with their debit card. And really, if that gets lost, the most, or there's someone who steals the card, the most that they can spend is $300. They don't have access to your entire ABLE account balance when it comes. So your entire account is not at risk when it comes down to it. Okay. In the event that you're a parent you've got the ability to have multiple cards, so parents can use it, guardians, rep payees, along with, and if you are your own person and you're self-directed, dual decision maker, you've also got the ability to utilize that as well too. So it's really kind of ease of spending with safety and multiplicity, which is something that works out very well. So as a picture, you've got your main ABLE account and you own the ABLE account, or the beneficiary owns the ABLE account. You can take your money and dump it into an ABLE debit account with your debit card, spend it on qualified expenses, and also have electronic records that are available for you at any time in the case of an audit, which you feel safety in the sense that only a portion of your account is technically exposed. And you also have the ability to honor any audits that come about. So a good example, something that maybe not for everybody, but at the same time, it's part of a, basic expenses. We have one client that basically says, hey, you're going to get a certain amount of money each month. And the young man he works at the YMCA. He walks by Quick Trip, wants to grab a candy bar, wants to grab lunch on his way. He's got his debit card for his ABLE account. Mom and dad feel pretty good that, over a month, he might spend $300 total on food and the different things, basic living expenses. He's able to have some freedom, and then be able to do some things with that and feel that he's got his own account that is for him as well too. So kind of as a review, we're at the point where we've got all the slides with all the words on them and everything else, but really, as a basic reminder, ownership, okay? The account is owned by the individual, okay? Whether they have a guardian or not, the account is owned by the individual, okay? And that's not an issue, right? It's not an issue because it's not a countable asset, okay, from a federal law perspective, okay? Sometimes if the caseworker doesn't know, there is an actual Wisconsin Department of Revenue site that talks about ABLE accounts, that they are not countable assets. And so I understand that sometimes there can be confusion when talking to a caseworker who maybe he doesn't understand what an ABLE account is, but there is proof and there is information there, which I'm happy to share with you if you need that anytime as well too. So, and it's public record. Personal reps can help manage, and but it is owned by the person, okay? Does provide obviously financial independence. If you want to use it as a budgeting, managing situation, it can be a savings account, it can be a spending account, and it's really an independent piece that works out very well, okay? Tax benefits. One thing we haven't talked about that I'm not going to get into today, but you can invest your funds inside of your ABLE account. Okay, so you can grow at the bank rate, savings account rate if you'd like to, but you can also invest those funds. That's kind of a conversation for a different day because it can get kind of complicated. But should you decide to invest those funds, there are no taxes on those investment gains. There are no taxes on anything that grows inside of an ABLE account. Okay, and it's something that works out very, very well from that standpoint. So there's a tax benefit there. Money goes in, it can grow. It can be spent, and there's no taxes that are incurred by the account owner. Okay, they're also very cost effective, very easy to set up, no cost really when it comes down to it. Most of the companies that we look at, most of the states will require a minimum deposit of $50 to start the account, and that's it. You could start it, have it, not touch it for 6 months, a year, whatever it happens to be, and it'll only cost you $50, and that $50 is yours because you put it into your account. It saves you in the sense that you don't need an attorney or an administrator of a trust to set up the account. There's no language legally or anything else that goes with it. And then you also will be able to invest relatively cheaply. There's, everything is, it's not like investing with a financial planner for a large fee or a large fee for service or anything. It's your account that you can invest on your own that works out pretty well. So that's kind of the basic benefits. So as we get to, I hope I haven't, obviously I've talked the whole time, right? But I hope that some of these things are, and if you've gone through this whole thing and you're still with me, looks like we still got 89 people. So I haven't chased too many people off yet. If you went through this whole conversation here and you're still kind of like, well, okay, I'm not sure. And, that was a lot of confusing stuff that went kind of fast and I couldn't hear them very well or whatever. Look at this slide and say to yourself, okay, I want to, you know, where can I start an ABLE account, right? The states in gray are the only states that currently do not offer an ABLE account program. I believe a lot of them are working on it. I know Wisconsin has something in the legislature, but I don't know where that's going to be right now. Okay. One of the things to look at, and you could say, well, there's, you know, whatever that is, 45, 44 different states I could pick from. Where am I supposed to go? Okay. One of the ones that I've had the most success with is one of the largest ones, which kind of stands to reason. The largest ABLE account program is the state of Ohio, and comes with rave reviews. It has an excellent website, and it probably has the most money from an ABLE account program, which then stands to reason it has the most support and the most people who work for that program as well too. Okay, so what I'd like to do is go up and maybe share with you. You go to the Stable Account Ohio, and you look up on top here, it's called the Stable Account. So if you're going to write anything down from this presentation, write down stableaccount.com. That is a place that you can go to, and this is the website right here. And if we look through this and you didn't know anything else and never sat through this presentation, you could say, well, I'm going to go to this stableaccount.com. What can I learn about it? Okay, well, number one, stable accounts give people with special needs more independence and financial security. Okay, and you keep scrolling through and doing your skim on the website, and tax-free earnings. Financial benefits are not affected. So Medicaid and SSI, you can see right there and read through here. And they also offer what's called a stable card, which is a debit card benefit. Okay. So then, all right, well, this sounds like a pretty good deal. Well, am I eligible? Okay, well, guess what? There's a quiz that you can take to see if you're eligible. That's how easy it is. And it has the same questions of, did your disability occur prior to age 26? And then what is the nature of your disability? And if you're not sure at the end, there's a phone number that you call and you talk to the stable account staff and support staff, and they walk you right through it. I've done this myself. Okay. So we've talked about what is it? What can it do? We've looked at, am I eligible? And then you say, okay, well, how does it work with my bank? How does it work with these investments? They seem interesting to me, but I'm not totally sure. How much can I put in? Okay. So one, you can connect your bank directly online. It says right here, obviously, like we talked about, $15,000 per year. And if you're employed, you may be able to contribute an additional, now it's up to $12,490. Okay. So let's say you had a lot of interest in the investment choices. Well, there's a whole entire section here that talks about the diverse choices that you have from an investment standpoint. Okay. And what you can do. Like I said, we won't touch on that today, but you could really by the end of today have a pretty good understanding of what ABLE accounts are and have yourself the opportunity to set up an account. It also talks about, well, what are my qualified expenses? Well, here's an entire definition of what qualified expenses look like, and an entire section where you can find out and ask. And it looks very similar, obviously, to the PowerPoint information that we had as well, too. So, so let's say that you get to this point and you say, all right, I want to open one. All right, well, it's pretty much this easy. Open an account, enroll now, and you go through this point. I won't go much further past this, but if you're ready to begin the application, click begin, and it really doesn't take that long to get done. So that's really how easy it is. I wanted to make sure I showed that. I mean, basically dispel some of the myths and the concerns, but then be able to show you, hey, this is really a pretty easy situation. This is not a difficult thing to do. You can do this, and you should do this if you are eligible to do so. This is a big benefit that can be helpful to you as a person or to your child, and really be a benefit. So, so we are at maybe about 10 minutes left. I think that, you know, maybe a couple of examples that I might show. We've got a big chat board that I think I will go through and work at helping people with. I think what I may do is, with everyone's permission, I may go through and look at the chat board and then get your answer to Phil on each one. And then I will have her send you the answer from there, because there's a lot of really good questions here as we're talking through, like what age are you able to participate? any age that you want to. You can make an ABLE account for a 2-year-old if you want to. You can, so there's a number of things here that I'll make sure that I follow through with these answers, but I want to make sure I finish up with the last part of the presentation here. So I appreciate everybody's patience. I hope that there's a lot of really good questions here. So yeah, so this is a really good situation. Some of you may have existing ABLE accounts that I'd be happy to help with. If I don't get to you and you want an answer right away, feel free to email me or even call my cell phone. It could work out pretty well. I'm happy to answer anything that I can from that standpoint. So, but let's maybe finish up with a few case examples. So I hope that this is helpful to you. As you can see here, this is a great website in addition to the stable account. It's not to say when I talk about stable account too with Ohio, Virginia has one of the oldest ones. Minnesota has one. Iowa has one. This is not to down talk any other program. Some of these programs you'll see, they may say, hey, there is no Medicaid clawback. The state of Oregon has put a clause in that says there's no Medicaid clawback for the ABLE account. But the difference is you have to live in Oregon to take care to be able to take part in that benefit. Okay, so as of Wisconsin right now, Medicaid does have access to your ABLE account funds should you pass away or should the child pass away. That may change, but don't be confused by some of that language. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to answer any questions when it comes to any group or any state account that you have. So, so a couple things, maybe just a couple of case studies that I think are just to give you an example, age eligibility, okay? One of the questions we had, how old can you be? Well, you can be a newborn child up through the diagnosis of age 26. So obviously a 2-year-old that's born with a disability, that'd be a yes, okay, in terms of age eligibility, okay? A 19-year-old with an autism diagnosis, absolutely, as well. A 36-year-old with a Down syndrome diagnosis, okay, with Down syndrome diagnosis being more than likely obviously prior to age 26 would be at birth, okay? Even though they are 36 now, and they have Down syndrome that was diagnosed at birth, they will be eligible because that diagnosis happened prior to age 26. So it's regardless of what age you are right now, it's what age your diagnosis occurred, okay? When you look at the next one, 36-year-old with a traumatic brain injury. Let's see here. Hold on one second. Change my audio. I think everybody can hear me now, I hope. Check, check. Yep, okay. So I think I'm good. Joe, maybe help me out if I don't have my audio on. But essentially, we have, let me get back to my, shoot. Sorry for my earphones ran out on me, folks. I apologize. Share screen, there, share. I think I'm good to go now. So 36-year-old who had a traumatic brain injury at age 28 would be older. That diagnosis would be after age 26, and therefore the 36-year-old would not be eligible age-wise for an ABLE account, if that makes sense. So that's basically just an age eligibility question or option. I'm going to go to, a couple case studies. So for example, one of the ones that I put down, and these are all the case studies are in the notes. But we're going to say that Vanessa was diagnosed with a disability at birth. She is 24 now and receiving SSI and Medicaid. She works for a local business in her hometown. Her income each month can occasionally affect her SSI amount that comes each month based on what she's making. So it reduces a little bit. Business does not offer a retirement plan. And her goal is to save a house to live in the next 8 years. So by the time that she's 32, she wants to be able to put money down in a house, okay? ABLE account's a great opportunity here. And I think the biggest thing to understand is she and her family can put in $15,000. And honestly, her corporation could help too. The company that she works for, if they're a small business and they want to help, they could put money into her ABLE account. But she can also put in, so 15,000 is the original number. she can also put an additional $12,400 if she wants to. So within a relatively short period of time, or I'd like to think that within an 8-year period, she'd be able to save a relatively substantial amount of money in her account with her ABLE account and not affect her benefits, and be able to have the option to purchase a house because it is a housing piece that she's eligible to use that ABLE account money for. So kind of a simple example, but it would be something that would work out well. Another example here is, we have a person who's 45, and we're going to say that they're eligible for SSI and Medicaid. And we'll say in this particular example, David's disability occurred prior to age 26, say that it happened when he was 18 years old. He owns a business, has full health benefits through his business, and he's eligible for SSI and Medicaid in terms of his disability, but he isn't in terms of his income and his assets, we'll say. David could actually use this. He can't add, he has a retirement account for the company, which he participates in. So that does not let him put the extra 12,000 in, but he could also use this account for himself and have the company put money in, and he's the owner, so he can choose that. But really it's just one more place that David could put money and use for benefits for himself. He could consider it retirement money, but he has the option, in his case, because he's a business owner, it does not exclude him from an ABLE account. And it's something that he's eligible to do it based on his age and his disability qualification. Another one here, we talk about Mary in this particular case. I think we'll, maybe depending upon, we got a couple minutes. Maybe the last thing we'll talk about here, we'll jump to these other ones. One of the things that you can do, okay, I think is important to understand. I got two more slides for you. One is, we have a parent. It's important to understand that trusts, we have parents with a child with a diagnosed disability. They're receiving state and federal benefits. They have an ABLE account where they are contributing with family and work that then is used for the benefit of the child. They also can set up a third-party special needs trust with a company like WISPACT or with an independent person. The parents can put money into the trust for the benefit of the child, as well as friends and family can. But the big kicker here is you cannot spend housing money from the special needs trust. So in this particular case, you can shovel money over to the ABLE account from the trust to be able to be spent on the child and be able to spend on housing. So that's one of the things that's unique about an ABLE account is money can be accepted from a trust with an ABLE account. It's kind of a next level type of thing, but that's something that works good. So last thing that I will have here is final thoughts of number one, don't procrastinate. Don't say it's something that you want to do tomorrow. Okay, I mean, the road with procrastination is paved with good intentions. It's important to get this done, and if there's a couple of questions that are keeping you from doing it, send me an email, let me help you through it, and let me help you get it started. So I think it's very important that if you're eligible, that you at least have it, and then you decide, how to do it, right? Next is if you're eligible, set up an account and use a state program. Don't necessarily go through an advisor, use a state program, and it will be the best one for you and the least expensive. Don't let the rules scare you about setting up an account, and then develop a plan for use and investment with someone who knows your situation financially and understands the ground rules of your benefits. If you're not sure, get someone to help, get an advisor to help, get someone to do some good things for you. So last thing, make some goals, save some money, use it to your benefit. It's a big deal. It's something that's there. Utilize it. If you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help you. And I would love for everybody to have one that can. I think it's a very important thing. So if you have questions, please send me an email. Let me know. Like I said, there's no cost for the advice of helping out with these things. This is something that's important that you have the right information and that you're able to get things done for yourself and for your child. And like I said, I will finish up with replying to all the chat questions, and I'll make sure that Phil gets those information to you. If you want to share your email with me and send me a question via email, please do so. I appreciate your time. I took all of the time. I hope it was informational. I hope it was helpful. And I hope there wasn't too many technical difficulties. So thank you. enjoy the rest of the conference, and hopefully I can meet you at some point down the line. Thank you much.